for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. I'm Darren Gibson. Several of the alleged co-conspirators in Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia have turned themselves in, so we'll talk about that. Law enforcement in a Kansas town have raided a newspaper office, and we're going to talk about their blatant disregard of the First Amendment. We have an update to the story we talked about last week regarding Grand Rapids Public Schools and the fact that many of their so-called charter schools have higher enrollment, and we'll talk about all of that while the rest of the district is in shambles, I guess, at this point. The Attorney General of Montana has compared the Tik-Tok app to cancer-causing radio. You've got to be kidding me. Plus, we have As Ottawa County Turns this week, so we'll talk about that and much more. Before we get started with today's topics, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on X, the former Twitter, at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube and Mastodon by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. And you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podvine, and Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and WMTB St. Petersburg, Florida. So be sure to listen to your local Pacifica affiliate. If your local affiliate is not carrying us, give them a call, shoot them an email, ask them to please pick up Southpaws. We would greatly appreciate it. So the rats are starting to fall in line, I guess, in regards to turning themselves in. They have a deadline of Friday, August 25th at 12 noon, high noon. Turn yourself in or else. Well, a couple of them have, and one is expected to today. We are actually recording this episode on Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023, and I have this story. This is Kate Brumbach writing for the Associated Press out of Atlanta. Rudy Giuliani is expected to turn himself in at a jail in Atlanta Wednesday on charges related to efforts to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. The former New York mayor was indicted last week along with Trump and 17 others. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis said they participated in a wide-ranging conspiracy to subvert the will of the voters after Trump lost to Democratic candidate Joe Biden in November 2020. Giuliani faces charges related to his work as a lawyer for Trump after the general election. As he left his apartment in New York on Wednesday, Giuliani told reporters, quote, "I'm feeling very, very good about it because I feel like I am defending the rights of all Americans as I did so many times as a United States attorney." End of quote. Oh, really? Yeah. Giuliani added that he is, quote, "fighting for justice," end of quote, and has been since he started representing Trump. I have a feeling the Bull's going to have a workout today. Trump, the early frontrunner in the 2024 Republican presidential primary, yeah, because there's too many stupid people in this country, has said that he plans to turn himself in at the Fulton County Jail on Thursday. His bond has been set at $200,000. He and his allies have characterized the investigation as politically motivated and have heavily criticized Willis, a Democrat. No, your investigation is called justice. It's not politically motivated. It's because you fat orange traitor, you tried to overturn an election that you lost fair and square. Giuliani criticized the indictment of lawyers who had worked for Trump and said the justice system was being politicized. No, it isn't. It is not. He also highlighted the fact that some of the people indicted are not household names. Giuliani said, quote, Donald Trump told you this. They weren't just coming for him or me. Now they've indicted people in the case. I don't even know who they are. These are just regular people making a normal living. End of quote. No, they're not. Willis has set a deadline of noon Friday for the people indicted last week in the election subversion case to turn themselves in. Her team has been negotiating bond amounts and conditions with the lawyers for the defendants before they surrender at the jail. A $100,000 bond was set Wednesday for Trump-allied lawyer Sidney Powell, one of several people accused in a breach of voting equipment in rural Coffee County in South Georgia. David Schaefer, who is a former Georgia Republican Party chair and served as one of the 16 fake electors for Trump, and Kathy Latham, who is accused in the Coffee County breach and was also a fake elector, turned themselves in early Wednesday morning. Also surrendering Wednesday were lawyers Ray Smith and Kenneth Chesbrough, who prosecutors said helped organize the fake electors meeting at the state capitol in December 2020. Attorney John Eastman, who pushed a plan to keep Trump in power, and Scott Hall, a bail bondsman who was accused of participating in a breach of election equipment in Coffee County, turned themselves in Tuesday. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office has said it will release booking photos at 4 p.m. each day, but Schaefer appeared to post his on the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, just after 7 a.m. Wednesday with the message, "Good morning, new profile picture." Yeah, I can't wait to see Donald Trump's mugshot. Actually, I probably could wait. Smug little bastard. And I can't wait to, just having to look at his orange face, especially that anus that he has between his nose and his chin. Yep, and that's what I call it because all it spews is shit. So there you go, folks. But right now, let's go to our next story. This is John Hanna and Marjorie A. Beck writing for the Associated Press. This is dated August 14th out of Marion, Kansas. This should scare the living hell out of everybody that's listening to this story. A small newspaper and a police department in Kansas are at the center of a dispute over freedom of speech as the newspaper struggled Monday to publish its next edition, days after police raided its office and the home of its owner and publisher. Officials with the Marion Police Department confiscated computers and cell phones from the publisher and staff of the Marion County Record in Friday's raid. On Monday, Kansas state authorities confirmed that they are also involved in a criminal probe of the newspaper over allegations that it illegally obtained and used personal information about a local business owner. Friday's raids have been widely condemned by press freedom watchdogs as a blatant violation of the United States Constitution's protections for free press. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly called the raids concerning. An attorney for the newspaper deemed the searches and seizures illegal and said the police department's action, quote, offends the constitutional protections the founding fathers gave the free press, end of quote. The Society of Professional Journalists pledged $20,000 toward the newspaper's legal defense. Hey, it's plain as text. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of the press. First Amendment, folks, First Amendment. It's first for a reason, because it's important. But some Marion residents hold a different view, accusing the newspaper of aggressive news coverage that has driven out businesses and painted a negative picture of the town of about 1,900 people. Well, if you have a negative picture, it's probably your own doing, folks. Got news for you. Don't blame the messenger. Sorry. That's all there is to it. Newspaper publisher and co-owner Eric Meyer said he believes the newspaper's dogged coverage of local politics and police chief Gideon Cody's record are the main reason for the raids. The record was in the midst of digging into the newly hired chief's past as a Kansas City, Missouri police captain when the raids were carried out, according to Meyer, although the newspaper has not yet published a story. The newspaper's attorney, Bernie Rhodes of Kansas City, sent a letter to Cody demanding that police not review any information on the computers or cell phones seized, saying they were taken illegally and contain identities of confidential sources. He also accuses Cody of misinterpreting laws on privacy and wrongly applying them to news reporters. Rhodes said, quote, I can assure you that the record will take every step to obtain relief for the damages your heavy-handed actions have already caused my client. End of quote. Yeah, I hope they sue for $100 million and bankrupt the town. That's what you get. You deserve to be bankrupted when you pull shit like this, violating the First Amendment. Unbelievable. The police searches appear to have been prompted by a complaint from local restaurant owner Carrie Newell, who accused the newspaper of invading her privacy after it obtained copies of her driving record, including a 2008 drunken driving conviction. Newell says the newspaper targeted her after she ordered Meyer and a reporter out of her restaurant earlier this month during a political event. Meyer says a source gave the newspaper the information unsolicited and that reporters verified it through public online records. The paper eventually decided not to run a story, but it did report on Newell's complaints about the newspaper's investigation at a city council meeting where she publicly confirmed she'd had a DUI conviction and that she drove after her license was suspended. Yeah, she doesn't want her own skeletons in her closet out. That's her problem. Sorry, got news for you. You earned those skeletons. If they see the light of day, that's just too bad, honey. The search warrant names Newell as a victim and lists the underlying reasons for the searches as suspicion of identity theft and, quote, unlawful acts concerning computers, end of quote. Here's what I say about the identity theft accusation. It's bullshit. Both Meyer and Newell have said they have fielded messages and some threats from as far away as London in the aftermath of the raids. Meyer worked with his staff Monday to reconstruct stories, ads, and other materials for its next edition Wednesday. Cody defended the raid on the newsroom, saying it was conducted legally, while press freedom and civil rights organizations have said the police overstepped their authority. Yeah, pretty much every major news outlet in this country, ABC, CBS, NBC, the Associated Press, CNN, have all decried this raid. All of them have. Jared Smith, a lifelong Marion resident, said Monday that he supports the police raid. Well, because he's a fucking idiot. Smith accused the newspaper of ruining his wife's day spa business opened only a year ago by digging into her past and discovering she had appeared nude in a magazine years before. That fact was repeated in the record more than 20 times over a 6-month period, according to Smith. He said, quote, the newspaper is supposed to be something that, yes, reports the news, but it's also a community newspaper. It's not, how can I slam this community and drive people away, end of quote. Authorities appeared unprepared for the public backlash to the raids as involved agencies either refused to comment Monday or took pains to acknowledge the constitutional right to a free press while defending the ability of police to investigate journalists. Cody referred questions Monday to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, saying it was leading the investigation. The state agency in turn refused to say it had taken over the investigation, referring instead to a statement saying it had joined the investigation and seemed to try to distance itself from the raids. The state police agency said it had assigned an agent to the case at the request of Cody on August 8th, 3 days ahead of the raids, but did not apply for the search warrants and wasn't there when they were executed. While the agency declared freedom of the press as, quote, a vanguard of American democracy, end of quote, It also appeared to defend the actions of local police, saying, quote, "No one is above the law, whether a public official or a representative of the media," end of quote. Well, just the way that Donald Trump's been treated is proof positive that people are above the law if you're rich and powerful enough. Sorry, that's the way it is, folks. That's exactly the way it is. There are two systems in the legal system. One for the poor, one for the rich. Period. End of story. Both Meyer and Newell are contemplating lawsuits. Newell against the newspaper and Meyer against the public officials who carried out the search. Meyer also blames the raid at his home for stressing his 98-year-old mother enough to cause her death on Saturday. Joan Meyer was the newspaper's co-owner. Yeah, they actually showed video of the raid where she called the police chief an asshole to his face. Yeah, I was with her all the way, because that's exactly what he is. He is a power-hungry asshole. It really is that simple, folks. It really is. We will definitely follow this story, because any time that law enforcement on behalf of the government obstructs the freedom of the press, that destroys democracy a little bit more and a little bit more. This is what it's come down to, folks. It really is. And you better decide which side you're going to be on. Are you going to be on the right side of history and defend the press? Or are you going to be on the wrong side of history and be a bootlicker and support the pigs? Sorry, it's that plain, it's that simple. Speaking of pigs, oh boy, let me get to our next story here. This is a follow-up. We talked last week about the Grand Rapids Public Schools complaining about their vacancy rates in the public schools and that they want to close more buildings off. So, in light of that, I'm going to go ahead with the entire story that we referenced on last week's show. This is Melissa Frick, Scott Levin, writing for the Grand Rapids Press and MLive. This is from July 19th out of Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids Public Schools has way more building space than it actually needs. No, they don't. They've moved their students. That's the problem. Due to shrinking student enrollment, because they're operating private charter schools instead of actual public schools, the district's 42 school buildings are largely unutilized and under capacity. Grand Rapids has an average building utilization rate of 51%, meaning schools across the district are typically used at only half their capacity, according to figures from Grand Rapids Public Schools. In comparison, the state of Michigan recommends that school districts maintain an 85% utilization level. Grand Rapids school leaders are currently looking at closing some school buildings, relocating students, and consolidating programs as part of an effort to reduce the district's footprint and right-size GRPS for a smaller student body. I love it. They think this is the 80s and 90s when they were laying people off by saying we're right-sizing our organization. No, you're firing people. Let's just call it what it is. Let's use some simple language. George Carlin for years had a great routine about the use of language where in World War I, soldiers would come home and they would suffer from depression, etc. It was called shell shock. After World War II, it was called war fatigue. And then after Vietnam, it was called post-traumatic stress disorder. It's the same thing, it's just called different names. But it all means the same thing. So right-sizing is firing. That's what it is. They're going to right-size, they're going to fire people, they're going to close buildings, they're going to consolidate. School leaders have said that the goal for Grand Rapids Public is to bring its average utilization rate up to 75% by 2032. As part of the district's ongoing facilities master planning process, GRPS leaders have been compiling utilization rates for all of the schools across the district this year. School leaders say that data will be considered in conversations about which schools should eventually be consolidated or closed. The Grand Rapids Press and MLive published a searchable database with utilization rates for all 42 buildings across the district. So they've got it listed, and we will post a link to that on our official Facebook page. They also have a map as well that does the same thing. But according to the map, the southeast quadrant of the school district has the largest portion of buildings with utilization rates below 25%. That's not by accident, folks. That is by design. Why? Because most of the students that go to the southeast portion of the district are typically black, brown, different minorities. Really it is, folks. GRPS currently has 42 educational buildings, but only needs about 21 educational facilities based on current enrollment levels. That's according to consultants that the district has hired. Yeah, consultants. I love talking about consultants. Those are people that wanted to work in an industry and couldn't get in, so now they tell others how to run the same industry. It's like television consultants. These are people that couldn't make it in television news, but now they go to stations across the country and tell news operations how they should run. What kind of hairstyle that their anchor should be wearing, what colors they should be wearing, etc., etc. They couldn't do it in real life. Now they're doing it in pretend as a consultant. Oh, I've been wanting to say that for 30 years, and it felt good. The district has roughly 1 million square feet of unutilized space, costing the district an average of $4 per square foot to maintain. That means that Grand Rapids Public Schools is spending $4 million a year maintaining those unused spaces. That's according to the district. According to figures from the district, school leaders additionally estimate that if the district reduces its facility footprint by 20 to 30%, Grand Rapids Public could alleviate approximately $145 million in deferred maintenance costs. There are also staffing shortages at play. Grand Rapids Public, like districts nationwide, continues to struggle with a historic shortage of teachers and school staff, which was exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. They don't mention that it's also exacerbated by low pay, higher costs as far as health insurance goes. People are just getting out of teaching because they can make more money elsewhere, get better benefits, doing something else. But of course, the Grand Rapids Press doesn't say that because they want to suck up to the Grand Rapids Public Schools, and for that matter, to Dick and Betsy DeVos. As of June 2023, there were over 400 vacancies across the district that remained unfilled. Because the district's staff are spread thin across 42 schools, the closure of some schools would help alleviate those shortages by consolidating programs and making sure staff and resources are properly dispersed across the district. GRPS has 7 school buildings that have less than a 30% utilization rate according to district figures. And we mentioned them on last week's show. They are, in order, Kettleshay Park at 18%, Westwood Middle School at 19%, Ottawa Hills High School at 23%, Sherwood Park at 23%, Southeast Career Pathways at 26%, Riverside at 27%, and Stocking Elementary at 28%. The 7 school buildings that top the list with more than 70% utilization, with many exceeding capacity, are Museum High School, 143% utilization, Blandford at 115% utilization, North Park Early Childhood, 100%, North Park Montessori, 84%, Ridgemore Park, 80%, Zoo School, 79%, C.A. Frost Elementary, 72%. What do they all have in common? They're all charter schools chartered by the Grand Rapids Public School District. They're not really public schools. They have the GRPS name in front on the sign, but they're not actual public schools because each school has their own board of directors and they get to choose who attends and who doesn't. Grand Rapids remains the largest school district in West Michigan. However, enrollment has declined by nearly 30% since 2008, when the district had over 19,000 students. This year, there were less than 14,000 enrolled. Grand Rapids public leaders attribute the decade-long enrollment decline to four main factors, as we mentioned on last week's show. Lack of affordable housing, which there's affordable housing issues all over the place. Declining birth rates in Kent County and across the state, because people are smart and they've decided they don't want to have little children live in the world the way that it is now. The COVID-19 pandemic, which I don't understand because guess what? According to the evil, violent, conservative traitors, the pandemic is over. And the fourth one, more school options in the area. Those options including the 21 charter schools operating under license by the Grand Rapids Public School District. This is not the first time GRPS has had to close schools to combat falling enrollment. In 2000, the district had a student population of 27,000 and maintained over 80 school buildings. That's according to figures from the district. Over the following 14 years, the district closed 35 school buildings as enrollment declined to 16,113 in the year 2014. The last time Grand Rapids Public assessed its facilities was in 2012, when retired Superintendent Teresa Weatherall-Neal spearheaded the district's transformation plan that called for investing in programs that were performing well and discontinuing those that were ineffective. Yeah, you know who she got that idea from? Dick and Betsy DeVos. We've covered it on this show in the past about how Teresa Weatherall-Neal traveled to different seminars on the dime of Betsy DeVos. The district ended up closing 10 buildings as part of that plan. Since then, GRPS has not closed any other schools despite having lost an additional roughly 2,600 students. Yeah, to the charter schools. Grand Rapids school leaders are projecting a student population of 13,514 students in the fall of 2023, down about 200 students from the previous school year, according to state data. In comparison, the district's buildings have capacity to house 26,596 students, which is nearly double the expected enrollment levels for next year. So there you go. The problem, folks, is that the Grand Rapids Public Schools, the people running the place, are their own worst enemy by allowing 21 charter schools to operate under their license. And you wonder why enrollment's down? Right there's the biggest reason. You better wake up and smell the brew. There's a lot of people that haven't figured out that there's 21 private charter schools operating in the Grand Rapids Public School District, most of them operating under license by GRPS. They have the GRPS logo on the sign, but they're not a public school. They are a private charter. Get with it. Do your research. I've tried to get people to listen to last week's show. Oh, I don't want to listen to a podcast. Anybody can say anything. Let me just tell you, folks, Jack Prince is a retired educator with 30 years experience across the Grand Rapids Public Schools District and other districts in the state of Michigan. He is a former football coach at the high school and college level. National champion coach in Grand Valley. If Jack were to appear on a stand in court, he would be considered an expert witness. 30 years experience. Just like if I was called to court about something involving strip clubs, I would be considered an expert witness. 25 years working in the strip club industry. Folks, that's what experience gets you. You need to listen. You better do it now. You better do it or you're going to fail. It's going to happen. I guarantee it. Speaking of failures, let's get to our next story here. This is Mac DeGarren writing for Gizmodo.com. This was published Monday, August 21st. Montana's lawsuit-hungry Attorney General Austin Knudsen wants U.S. courts to think of Tik-Tok less like a lighthearted home for viral trends and more akin to the harbinger of a life-threatening disease. In recent court filings defending his state's unprecedented ban on the short-form video app, Knudsen compared Tik-Tok to a cancer-causing radio. That's in direct quotes. Something he said lawmakers would likewise have a duty to prohibit. Freedom of expression concerns be damned. Restricting the app may hamper some online speech, the conservative AG admitted, but that trade-off is necessary to combat, quote, data gathering by a hostile foreign state, end of quote. Yeah. In a statement, Knudsen said, quote, our legislators and Governor Giuliani did the right thing in prohibiting TikTok from operating in Montana as long as it's under the control of a foreign adversary. My office looks forward to vigorously defending the lawsuit as this case proceeds, end of quote. And let me add, Giuliani, former winner douchebag of the week for punching a reporter. Knudsen's defense comes on the heels of a pair of lawsuits launched by Montana-based TikTok creators and the company itself seeking to have courts kill the law before it takes effect in January. If Montana succeeds, the law would fine app stores up to $10,000 per day for allowing downloads of the app in the state. Opponents of the ban, like the American Civil Liberties Union and the Electronic Frontier Foundation, argue it could close off a major forum for online speech, which would amount to a clear violation of TikTok users' First Amendment rights. The Attorney General countered that point in his brief, though, arguing state lawmakers like himself still possess the ability to regulate or ban dangerous products, even if they can simultaneously be used as a vehicle for protected speech. To buttress that point, Knudsen pointed to a 1986 Supreme Court decision that denied a bookstore First Amendment protections because it had become a site for prostitution. He argued that the First Amendment only extends so far. Knudsen said, quote, were it otherwise, Montana would be powerless to ban a cancer-causing radio merely because that radio also transmitted protected speech, or to ban sports betting apps merely because those apps are also shared informative videos teaching their users the intricacies of sports gambling, end of quote. Knudsen went on to compare the state's TikTok ban to a law mandating school uniforms. Wow, he's really stretching it there. Opponents to mandatory dress codes previously argued such requirements would inhibit students' right to expression, only to have courts uphold the rule because it still lets students express themselves via other outlets, like their voices. Similarly, Knudsen said the TikTok ban is akin to uniforms because it only restricts one avenue or particular product and doesn't ban video sharing from other competing apps like YouTube. Montana TikTokers, he suggested, could simply express themselves by using another app. What about those people that have been banned from YouTube? Sorry, got news for you. It happens. But multiple TikTok creators opposing the ban have told Gizmodo it would be difficult, if not impossible, to recreate or carry over their same audience on TikTok to other platforms. Some users, like veteran and metal sculptor Rick Baker, told Gizmodo that TikTok has helped form niche online communities where other veterans can connect and deal with the trauma of war. Baker feels that could simply vanish if TikTok is made inaccessible. Baker told Gizmodo, quote, it would be a huge hit for me. I don't think lawmakers understand the impact this can have on small business, end of quote. TikTok's lawyer similarly took issue with the state's apparent effort to craft legislation that appears written to address a federal national security issue. Knudsen pushed back against the argument as well, saying states with small populations like his, which is made up of just over 1 million residents, also have an interest in defending national security. The Attorney General noted that Montana is one of 45 states currently investigating TikTok's safety and data harvesting features for evidence of foreign surveillance. TikTok maintains it doesn't share U.S. user data with the Chinese government, though a former ByteDance executive and multiple whistleblowers have alleged that's not the case. It's difficult to disentangle growing national unease over TikTok's Chinese ownership from the Montana ban, a fact Knudsen notes in a recent interview with the Wall Street Journal. The Attorney General credited part of the bipartisan support the bill received to growing anxiety and nonstop news coverage documenting a pair of Chinese spy balloons that crossed in Montana earlier this year. The balloons hovered around Big Sky Country just as the explicitly China-wary TikTok bill was being considered by lawmakers. Knudsen told the Wall Street Journal, quote, The Chinese Communist Party did us a hell of a favor. That balloon floating all the way across Montana. That absolutely galvanized some legislators. End of quote. An expert in the laws of online speech pushed back on Knudson's argument. NetChoice Associate Director of Litigation Nicole Sad-Bembridge worried a court ruling accepting the state's reasoning could set a, quote, worrying precedent where Americans' access to information on the internet can be dependent on local politicians' individual preferences, end of quote. NetChoice has vigorously opposed the Montana ban and filed briefs in support of creators. Sad-Bembridge said, quote, Montana tries to skirt the First Amendment's constraints by calling the ban a regulation of conduct rather than speech. But if states had free rein to restrict speech by simply calling it conduct, freedom of expression would be a hollow guarantee. End of quote. She is correct on that. Sad-Bembridge said, we've really already been here before. She said Montana's argument follows in close step to a short-lived 2020 effort by the Trump administration to ban Tik-Tok countrywide on devices on national security grounds. In that case, a U.S. District Court judge struck down the attempt after finding a lack of evidence the ban would actually address national security concerns. Bembridge added, quote, this ban should be treated no differently, end of quote. I totally agree with her, 100%. Free speech, folks, is under attack by evil, violent, conservative traitors. Why? For the same reasons they attack education. They want everybody else to be just as dumb or dumber than they are. Period. End of story. That's all it is, folks. That is all that it is. They want people to be totally stupid. Speaking of totally stupid, oh, you know what that music means. Time for As Ottawa County Turns. And now, Hoctor and Ramble present As Ottawa County Turns. Brought to you by Huff's Facial Tissues. Use it to wipe your nose after you've been huffing gasoline or after you've been snorting cocaine. Well, you'd have to snort cocaine to live in Ottawa County or huff gasoline, or paint for that matter. And right here's one reason why. This is Mitchell Boatman writing for the Holland Sentinel. This is dated August 23rd. A day after Ottawa County Board Chair Joe Moss proposed cutting millions from the health department's budget, Administrative Health Officer Adeline Hambly pushed back on social media. The post references a request by Moss during a budget work session Monday to reduce the general fund contribution to the health department to $2.5 million, millions lower than the figure in the initial budget. Posting from the Ottawa County Department of Public Health, Hambly said County Administrator John Gibbs asked her Tuesday to propose a new budget with a nearly 50% reduction by Thursday. Hambly wrote, quote, this was after Monday's meeting when Administrator Gibbs remarked and the commissioners agreed that they could not ask other departments to cut funding by 5% until next year. It was stated that the process was complex and it was recommended an external consultant be hired to identify efficiencies without sacrificing services. Public health is being asked to cut more than 10 times that in just 2 days with no consultant assisting. End of quote. Hambly said the proposed cuts would, quote, significantly impair and likely eliminate various public health services. End of quote. She wrote that the actions could lead to increased fees and long delays. Moss justified his request by saying Ottawa County Department of Public Health received between $2.5 to $3 million from the general fund from 2009 to 2019 and provided adequate services. Hambly wrote the proposed cuts bring the department's operating budget to less than that of 2009 during the start of an economic recession. She said that, amid population growth and rising costs, that budget won't go as far in 2024. She wrote, quote, it is ridiculous to expect that services in 2024 could be completed with a budget below 2009 funding levels. For example, as development ground to a halt during the Great Recession, Only 38 evaluations were completed for vacant property to determine suitability for home construction with a septic system. In 2021, over 200 evaluations were completed, a number that has continued to grow each year, as has demand for many other health department services. End of quote. She also wrote the board's proposal to give up grant funding, quote, allegedly because of various political considerations, end of quote, hurts county residents and is, quote, fiscally short-sighted, end of quote. Hambly feels the budget cuts are retaliation for her ongoing lawsuit against the board. Well, I tell you what, I think she's onto something right there. Yep, I think she is indeed. Hambly wrote, quote, if the commission moves forward with this level of budget slashing, I believe it will be a clear act of unlawful retaliation against me for bringing a wrongful termination suit for attempting to remove me as the appointed administrative health officer and for the trial court's decision to grant me judgment on that claim. Moreover, such actions may subject the county to other legal consequences, such as the issuance of an administrative compliance order to the local governing entity by the state of Michigan for failure to demonstrate adequate provision of required services to the community. End of quote. Yep, she's right on that too. Hours after Hambly's post, the board approved a resolution taking aim at another of Ottawa County Department of Public Health Services, a resolution supporting childhood vaccine waivers and requiring more information from the health department throughout the vaccination process. According to a memo in the meeting packet, the resolution, quote, affirms the right of parents to direct the medical care of their children, end of quote. Yeah. It gives parents the rights to kill their children legally. Sorry, I'm just going to be blunt about it. I don't care anymore. Republicans, conservatives, evil, violent, conservative traitors, they don't give a f*** about your children and their health. They don't give a f*** about your health. They're proving it right here, plain as day. The resolution passed in a 9-2 vote. Moss, Vice Chair Sylvia Rodea, Commissioners Gretchen Cosby, Lucy Ebel, Jacob Bonema, Kyle Terpstra, Rebecca Curran, Roger Belknap, and Allison Miedema voted in favor. Doug Zylstra and Roger Bergman voted against. In the resolution, the board states it will, quote, respect the religious, moral, and ethical considerations, end of quote, of vaccines using fetal cells. It also reaffirms commissioners' belief in, quote, fully informed consent, end of quote, about the benefits and risks of vaccines. Yeah. Again, this is a legal license for parents to kill their children. The resolution requires that county promotions of vaccines for children, quote, include full and accurate information regarding available exemptions and waivers from vaccine requirements, end of quote, and that waiver sessions, quote, include information on both the risks and the benefits of vaccines, end of quote, among other information. You know what the state of Michigan ought to do? The Democrats have a majority in both houses. They've got a Democratic governor. It's time to get rid of the exemptions once and for all, period, end of story. No more. No more exemptions. No more. Get rid of them all. Get rid of them all. And I'd force it through. And if the Republicans don't like it, that's tough shit. Rodea said the board needed to weigh in after Ottawa County Department of Public Health sent an email with commissioners' names included at the bottom that encouraged vaccination, quote, without offering informed consent on safety risks or informing parents of their legal right to opt their child out of vaccine requirements for school, end of quote. It's not the county public health department's right to tell people to opt out. That's not what they're there for. They're there to try and get people vaccinated, you fucking idiot. No new process was created through the resolution, as a system has been in place for decades for parents to obtain vaccination waivers. Commissioners acknowledged this in the meeting, but said families need more information to have, quote, informed consent, end of quote. Really? Here's my informed consent for you. Bullshit. Bonema walked through the steps to obtain a waiver, highlighting the system in place. He said, quote, I just want the public to know this is not about obtaining a new right to be able to make this decision. This decision has been yours to make since the 1970s. The miscommunication has been how to get access to it, that it's in the fine print or not promoted. That's what I'm doing. I'm promoting it. End of quote. Yep, Bonnema is definitely not staying away from his conservative bullshit. He already said he wasn't. Well, there's his actions. There's your proof, folks. Several commissioners spoke about vaccine injuries. And VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Effect Reporting System. Bullshit. Cosby says she is vaccine injured from the COVID-19 vaccine and regrets taking it. No, she's mentally injured, as probably dropped on her head at birth. Minima said the resolution is a starting point for vaccine choice. No, it isn't. She said, quote, why is this particular resolution important? For me and many others, this is just a starting point in setting the trajectory back to respecting parental choice regarding vaccines. It's vitally important that our health department provides information about all potential risks and benefits. End of quote. Curran said parental authority, quote, is a God-given right, end of quote, and that parents don't, quote, sign up to co-parent with the government, end of quote. These conservative right-wingers, these nut jobs, need to be slapped upside one head and right down the other. Up one side, down the other. Bergman said public health is about prevention of disease and that parents have had vaccine choice for years. Zylstra said he voted no because the document was not balanced. Later in the meeting, Rodea said 4.5% of children in the county have vaccine waivers under the Michigan average of 4.9%. She said, quote, we're not in a situation where we have masses of families going out to obtain waivers. I'm not saying that would be a bad situation, but it's not the situation that we're in right now. Actually, it would be a bad situation if you had that, because then you'd have more children dying of disease. Like I said, conservatives don't give a f*** about your children. More than 24 residents spoke about the resolution during public comment. Over 20 spoke in support, over 20 morons, while a handful spoke against it or in support of vaccines in general. Yeah, the smart people. The amount of stupidity. This is why I keep saying, boycott Ottawa County. Boycott Ottawa County. Boycott all the businesses. Boycott traveling through it. Stay the hell out of Ottawa County until they actually get some smart people running things there. I got to get off of this vaccine story and the Department of Public Health stuff, or I'll have a coronary myself. But let's stay with As Ottawa County Turns. This is Sarah Leach writing for the Holland Sentinel. This is dated August 15th. I apologize if you hear a lawnmower going on in the background. I have an idiot mowing the yard while I'm trying to record. Ottawa County's recent hire of a senior executive aide for Administrator John Gibbs does not have the required qualifications the county sought in its description of the position, according to documents. On August 8th, Gibbs confirmed to the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners that he had hired someone to fill the newly expanded role, but declined to name the individual to avoid a public spectacle. The Holland Sentinel has since confirmed that Gibbs hired Jordan Epperson of China Township in St. Clair County. The 23-year-old attended Algonac High School and graduated last year from Michigan State University with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. The position, which expanded the previous executive assistant position, was narrowly approved by the Board of Commissioners' Ottawa Impact majority in March. When asking for the board's approval to expand the position, Gibbs said after 2 months on the job, it was, quote, like drinking through a fire hose, end of quote. Yeah, because he can't handle the job. That's all it is, folks. He can't handle it. He's not capable. He doesn't have the smarts to do so. He said the ideal candidate would serve as a body man, an assistant or valet who follows a political figure around the clock, providing logistical assistance for daily tasks and likened the position to a chief of staff, which would emulate the federal style of governance. Those opposed to the position questioned what Gibbs would have left to do between an upgraded assistant and the deputy county administrator, a position that became vacant in late July after the resignation of Patrick Waterman. Commissioner Roger Bergman asked, quote, "Are we putting our administrator on the shelf? Is there anything left for him to do? It looks like it's a lot less for him to do. We're giving this person most of what he should be doing." End of quote. Gibbs said the change in the makeup of the board has necessitated additional work. He said previous board votes were often 11-0, and that's no longer the case, meaning the administrator has to be more hands-on. Gibbs said, quote, "I'm not putting myself on the shelf. I don't think that would make very much sense. I'd understand that previously most of the votes by the board were 11-0. There wasn't necessarily a lot of oversight or deliberations done on decisions. Being hands-on versus 11-0 requires more resources and more eyeballs on things. That's one of the reasons I do need this position in an upgraded capacity." End of quote. The upgrade came at a cost of $37,349.08, raising the cost for the position to $132,218.89, including benefits. Salary for the position increased from $54,101 to $81,538, an increase of $27,437. Gibbs said the aide would help him take notes during meetings, organize follow-ups, and help keep track of who he's met with. Gibbs has never responded to the Holland Sentinel's requests for comment. According to the job description posted by the county in March, the preferred candidate for the senior aide job must hold a Master in Business Administration from an accredited institution with specific experience in strategic management, innovation, and marketing and branding, Dean's List or Honor Roll, undergraduate major or minor from an accredited institution in an analytical or engineering discipline is strongly preferred. Working internally at the nonprofit level is strongly preferred, and at least 2 years of experience serving on a major board. The Holland Sentinel conducted an audit of the resumes the county received, gained through a Port Sheldon Township resident's recent Freedom of Information Act request. Here are some key findings. There were 30 total applicants. 22 of the 30 applicants were female. 23 hold bachelor's degrees. 11 hold any type of a master's degree. 15 had some type of executive aide experience listed. 6 listed experience serving on some type of a board. At least 6 candidates were people of color. 4 candidates said that they were on a dean's list or an honor roll. 2 candidates have worked internationally at the nonprofit level. Only 1 candidate appeared to have all 5 necessary qualifications the county was seeking, and that person was not hired. Of the 5 mandatory criteria listed, Epperson has 1, a bachelor's degree. According to his resume, Epperson worked as a part-time aide for Representative Matt Maddock, one of several lawmakers active in Michigan's Grand U Party, a far-right offshoot of the Republican Party launched by Representative Steve Carra. Most recently, Epperson worked as a legislative aide last year for Northern Michigan State Representative Neil Frisk, also a Grand U Party supporter. Prior to the stints with Maddock and Frisk, Epperson worked as a political consultant for Victory Strategies, LLC, an organization founded by current Maddock legislative aide Benjamin Wetmore, and associate of Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe, who later served as counsel for the now-defunct guerrilla journalism nonprofit American Phoenix Project in Texas. Epperson is also an infantry rifleman in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve. Oh, brother. I'm a big bad Marine! I don't care. I'm going to piss off as many people as I can today. I just don't care anymore. Epperson also listed experience writing for Big League Politics, a far-right media website founded by former Breitbart News employee that promotes conspiracy theories. In his writings, Epperson says, quote, "The rise of Marxism is upon us," end of quotes. I wish it was. He also appears to support and defend what he calls, quote, paleo-conservative influencers, end of quote, such as InfoWars founder Alex Jones, Donald Trump loyalist Roger Stone, and Nick Fuentes, an anti-Semitic white nationalist provocateur whose dinner with Trump last year was met with heavy criticism from Republican leaders. Epperson's article spanned from 2020 to December 2022. Last week, Epperson's social media accounts were linked to several prominent far-right Republicans in the state, including Frisk, Cara, and former Michigan Republican Party co-chair Michonne Manick, one of 16 people in Michigan charged for allegedly acting as a false elector in the 2020 presidential election. That she didn't allegedly act, she signed the document. It's now determined if she committed a crime. Epperson is also linked to Joel Studebaker, former chair of the Ottawa County Republican Party, who left the position weeks later to become chief of staff for the Michigan Republican Party chair Christina Caramo. She was nominated for the role by Ottawa County Board Chair and Ottawa Impact founder Joel Moss. Epperson's Twitter profile picture was of him posing at an event with former Michigan Attorney General candidate Matt DePerno, who was charged earlier this month with violating state election law, and Mike Lindell, the founder of MyPillow, who continues to claim the 2020 presidential election was stolen from Trump. Epperson made his Facebook account private and deleted his Twitter account just days after his hiring was reported, but not before dozens of screenshots of his previous social media posts had been captured, including several controversial comments about women and immigrants, among other topics. He tweeted this November 17, 2020, quote, import women from Eastern Europe to make fat American women jealous. Women will only better themselves because of jealousy, no other reason, end of quote. On November 11, 2018, he tweeted this, quote, I also think it's dangerous to believe all women because men have a right to due process. There was no proof on Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, end of quote. He tweeted this November 25th of 2020, quote, I think Mexico realizes that with how much the Dems want to open up the borders and give amnesty, the Mexican population would decline at record rates and the country would be in more disarray than it already is, end of quote. On January 14, 2019, he tweeted this, quote, it's good to hear someone with common sense on the other side instead of just saying I'm a white guy so I'm an evil rapist, end of quote. No, you just support one. Epperson also had several posts using the ableist slur retard or retarded. And I'm not bleeping it. Folks, you need to be shocked by this language. By the way, if you want to see the screenshots, the Holland Sentinel has a link to it on their website, hollandsentinel.com. So make sure you check that out, and that means that we got to get on out of here. Yes, that wraps things up for yet another week. Join us again soon for another edition of As Ottawa County Turns. This program is produced for Big D Entertainment. Stay tuned for The Edge of Blight over most of these stations. I still haven't seen that show yet. I've got that episode and I still haven't watched it yet. I tell you what, folks, what you're seeing happening in Ottawa County is the petri dish of conservatism. Evil, violent, conservative traitors running amok and destroying everything so that they can get their own say and have control over everybody else. That's it for this week. I'm Darren Gibson. Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.